And now I want to talk about a tool that lets me put in multiple inputs and multiple outputs and gives me multiple answers. So far, my solver and my goal seat gave me maybe the one best answer. But now I'm wondering, maybe for one of those loan amortizations, what if I borrowed at this percent instead of that other percent? What if I borrowed this amount rather than that other amount? Rather than doing them one at a time, maybe I want a bunch of combinations of those. That's what a data table will let me do. And it just so happens I have a worksheet all set up for a data table. So I'm going to click on it. Who would have guessed I would have a sheet just set up for that? Yeah, of course, everybody would have guessed. All right, this time we're going to look at the monthly payments again, as I suggested. And why don't we set up the same problem that we had in the loan amortization worksheet? That is, we're going to borrow $700,000 at 7%. And as I go down here to C5, you can see it's calculating a 25-year mortgage times 12 payments per month. So that's my term in months. And lo and behold, down here in this corner, it says then your monthly payment would be $4,947.45. Hey, that looks familiar. That's the amount it came up with in the loan amortization worksheet. Only now you can see that I'm going to plug in several different percentage amounts. And I would like it to calculate right next door, then what would that make my monthly payment? First, I'm going to need a formula up in this cell. And it just so happens I have that formula down in this cell, so I'd like to copy and paste. But as I look at the formula down here in B19, I don't see any dollar signs in there. These are all relative references. And I'm going to need those to be absolute references, looking up here at cell C4 and cell C5 and cell C3. So to make those all absolute references, I need well-placed dollar signs. So I'm going to have a dollar sign in front of the 4. I'm going to have a dollar sign in front of the 5 in C5. I'm going to have a dollar sign in front of the 3 in C3. All right, so I'm going to use Control-Enter to finish calculating that. Now I'm going to make a copy of that. In fact, if I copy that, I'm going to have the C's changing to D's because I'm going to be moving over one column. So I guess I better freeze the C's as well. Dollar sign in front of the C, dollar sign in front of the C, dollar sign in front of the C. Now I'm holding Control-Enter, and now I'm ready to make a copy of that cell. So I'm going to right-click on it. I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to go up to this cell right here where I need this formula re-input. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to paste. And so now it comes to the same exact amount because it's got everything as absolute cell references. I still have the marching ants down here. I'm going to tap the escape key to get rid of the flashing marquee there. And now I'm ready to go. I'm ready to set up my data table. So the data table has to be set up in a particular kind of order here. I need to have a formula, and then I need to have a column of what we call inputs, and then we're going to have a column of outputs right next to that. So here's how we make our data table. You must select the cell that has the formula, and you have to select the cells that have the inputs. So I got to have the formula in the upper right-hand column and the inputs in the left-hand column for a one-variable data table. It must be set up that way. So now it knows where to put the answers here. It's going to drop them right in that spot right there. And now I need to turn on the data table command, and it's available under the data ribbon. And it's over here under the what if analysis tools, and it's called data table. So I click on that. Again, a very small window with only a couple of boxes to fill stuff in. So I've got a box for a row input cell. I've got a box for a column input cell. In this case, I have a column of inputs right here. I have a column of interest rates that I would like to input in place of cell C4. And then it's going to use that in this formula that uses cell C4, among other things. So I don't have a row of inputs. I have only a column of inputs. So that means I will have a column input cell. I'm going to click to put my cursor in the column input cell. I'm going to say these percentages right here, this column of inputs, I want them substituted one at a time for this interest rate up here in cell C4. So take this one, plug it in there, and then calculate my monthly payment. And then take 7.5, plug it in there, and calculate my monthly payment. And it will do all that when I choose OK. And there it is. So the higher the interest rate, the higher the monthly payment. So I'm going to put the video on pause, and I would like you to try that. Let me just remind you of what we did. I needed a formula up here that points to those cells, but I needed them to be absolute references. So I had to freeze the C, had to freeze the 4. So I copied, I started down here in B19, I did all my my absolute references down here, and then when I copied it, I got those exact same absolute references up in this cell. And then to do data table, you have to select the cell that has the formula and the cells that have the inputs, which means you'll also be selecting the cells that are going to contain the outputs. You went to what if analysis, you turned on data table. We had a column of inputs, therefore we had a column input cell for that 7% right there. And then when you clicked OK, it calculates. So I'm putting the video on pause. Go do your first data table. That's a one variable data table. When you come back, we'll look at a two variable data table.